Hey everyone, so ever feel like starting a business is kind of like climbing Mount Everest, but in flip-flops instead of hiking boots?
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, we are diving deep into the entrepreneur's guide to building a successful business to get you some sturdier footwear, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Of course.
Think of this deep dive as your crash course in business success. We're going straight from, theory to the trenches.
And what's really cool about this book is that it's not just, one guru on their soapbox. It's like we're getting wisdom from hundreds of small business owners, like across 14 countries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like having a global network of mentors just like, ready to share their secrets.
I love that. All right, so let's talk big ideas.
Yeah.
I mean, is $1 million idea all about, being totally original?
It's funny. The book actually argues that you don't always need to reinvent the wheel to be successful.
Okay.
Like take Telepizza in Spain, for example. They basically took the Domino's pizza model and just, adapted it for a new market.
So it's more about clever adaptation than starting completely from scratch.
Exactly. You find a proven concept, something that works,
Yeah.
and then you give it your own fresh spin.
That's smart. That's
Yeah.
really smart. But how do you actually find those golden opportunities in the first place?
I think it starts with being really in tune with real needs. Like, what are people actually asking for? What problems are they facing?
Yeah.
Like, think about Levi Strauss. He didn't just wake up one day and decide to make jeans. He saw miners struggling with flimsy clothes,
Yeah.
and he was like, I can fix that. So he did.
He saw a need and he filled it.
That's exactly. Or take the Kaiser supermarket in Berlin. It was designed specifically with wider aisles and magnifying glasses on the shopping carts
Why?
for their aging customer base.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, they paid attention to a specific need and they catered to it. And it's those little details that can make a huge difference.
So being observant is key.
Big time.
Mm-hmm.
Big time. Another great example from the book is Gail Borden. He was like devastated by how many infants were dying from spoiled milk back then.
Oh, gosh.
And that's what pushed him to create condensed milk. Like it was a total game changer.
Wow. Talk about turning a problem into a solution and like a really impactful one at that. Okay, so you've got this amazing idea. Everyone loves it. Now comes the part where some people get a little bit too excited and maybe stumble a little bit.
Racer. Yeah. And this book is packed with cautionary tales about why doing your due diligence is not negotiable.
Like what?
Okay, so there's this story about a gift shop owner who was like absolutely convinced that there was this huge untapped market for like, affordable tableware.
Okay.
He goes all in, invests a ton of money, even renovates his entire shop. And guess what?
Nobody wanted it.
Nobody wanted his tableware.
Yeah.
He skipped that very important step of making sure there was an actual demand for it.
Ouch. That's going to hurt. I mean, like financially and emotionally.
Yeah, so the book really stresses due diligence. Like it sounds very formal, but it's basically the homework you do to make sure your business idea has legs.
Yeah.
It can actually walk and run. And it doesn't have to be this intimidating thing either. It can be as simple as, striking up conversations with people, like casually asking about what gym ads they respond to or,
Yeah.
just getting a feel for what's out there.
Interesting. So it's about validating your idea, not just falling in love with it and making sure there's a way to actually, make money from it, which
Yeah.
brings us to another make or break element, location.
Location.
Yeah.
Location. They say it for a reason.
They do.
You could have the best product or service in the world, but if you're tucked away in some, hidden corner, no one's going to find you.
Right.
The book really emphasizes that visibility and accessibility are crucial. Like imagine the best bakery in town, but it's hidden at the back of an alley with terrible parking.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well, even if the croissants are life-changing.
Even if they're life-changing croissants.
Exactly. Whether you're thinking about a home-based business or a trendy downtown shop or a spot in a bustling shopping center location can really make or break you.
Okay, so no pressure on that decision then.
None at all.
Speaking of pressure, this book does not sugarcoat the challenges of starting a business. I mean, it dedicates an entire section to the 13 reasons why businesses fail.
And for good reason, because the stats are kind of sobering.
Okay, how sobering are we talking?
Up to 90% of new businesses fail within the first few years.
90%. That's a lot. What are some of the major pitfalls? Is it all just about like not having enough money?
Money's definitely a big one. The book really stresses having a rock-solid financial plan.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean like a back-of-the-napkin revenue projection. We're talking about really understanding your expenses, knowing your burn rate.
Burn rate, what's that?
It's basically how fast you're burning through your capital.
Yeah.
Especially in those early stages when you might not have like a steady stream of income coming in.
Yeah.
You need to know how long your money's going to last and how you're going to manage that cash flow.
That makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like it's not enough to just have an amazing product or service. You have to be incredibly savvy about the money side of things too.
Absolutely. You can't just rely on passion and creativity.
Yeah.
You need to be able to manage the books and make smart financial decisions.
Right. And speaking of things, you can't just, hope for the best with marketing. There's this myth that if you build it, they'll come.
Right.
But the book debunks that pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. It stresses that marketing is not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
It's like dating. You got to keep putting in the effort.
Exactly. You got to get the word out there, connect with your customers, build a brand, and nurture those relationships.
So what are some of the marketing insights that really resonated with you from the book?
One that comes to mind is this. It's not enough to just shout about your product or service. You have to understand what motivates your customers. What are their pain points? What solutions are they looking for?
So you have to know your audience.
Yes, and you need to speak to their needs and their desires. The book has this great story about a butcher who stayed open late to debone a leg of lamb for a customer at like 11:30 at night.
Wow, talk about above and beyond.
Right? It might seem like a small gesture, but it illustrates this really important point about exceeding expectations and offering personalized service.
It's like they say people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in today's world, those human touches can make all the difference.
For sure. Speaking of making people feel valued, the book spends a lot of time on this idea of employee empowerment.
Yeah, and it's not just about being nice to your employees. It's about recognizing that they are your greatest asset.
Okay, I like that.
And empowering them to do their best work can have a huge impact on your bottom line.
So it's less about, micromanaging and more about creating a culture of trust and ownership.
Exactly. The book highlights this one situation where a manager refused a really generous donation for the company.
Wait, really? Why?
Because they weren't empowered to make that decision.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
Nope. They were so stuck in the "we've always done it this way" mindset that they missed out on a fantastic opportunity.
Wow, talk about a missed opportunity. So the book really contrasts that with companies that encourage their employees to problem solve and think outside the box.
Absolutely. They want their people to feel empowered to make decisions that benefit both the customer and the company.
So how do you actually create that kind of culture where employees feel like their voices are heard and they have a real stake in the success of the business?
Well, it starts with delegation. Setting clear expectations, but also giving people the autonomy to, figure things out for themselves.
Okay, so it's about finding that balance between guidance and freedom.
Exactly. And ongoing training and feedback are crucial.
Yeah.
Too often companies just do like a one-time training and then they think they're good.
Right.
But it needs to be an ongoing conversation.
So it's about creating a culture of continuous learning and growth.
Exactly. And that ties back to what we were saying earlier about entrepreneurs always needing to be learning and adapting themselves.
Just setting the example.
Exactly. And, this idea of empowerment isn't just good for employees. It ties directly back to customer motivation.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How so?
Well, think about it. Truly satisfied customers aren't just buying a product. They're buying a solution or a feeling.
Right.
The book uses Dow Chemical as an example. They transitioned from simply selling chemicals to offering a complete service.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they handled everything from application and cleanup to recycling.
So they identified a deeper need, and then they adapted their whole approach to meet that need.
Exactly. The book calls it shifting from a transactional to a problem-solving mindset.
I love that. So instead of just selling a product, you're selling a better version of your customer's life.
Precisely. And that's what really resonates with today's consumers. They want personalized experiences, genuine connections, and brands that understand their needs.
It's about building relationships, not just transactions.
Exactly. And that brings me to another great story from the book about a small butcher who went head-to-head with a Walmart.
Okay.
He couldn't compete on price, so he focused on what he could control: customer service.
Okay, like what?
He offered personalized advice, recipe suggestions, even late-night deliveries.
Wow, talk about going the extra mile. It proves that even in a world dominated by big box stores, small businesses can still compete by creating those personal connections.
Absolutely. It's not always about having the lowest price. It's about offering an experience that's unbeatable.
So true. Speaking of price, that's a tricky one for a lot of entrepreneurs. What insights did the book offer on setting the right price for your product or service? Because you don't want to be too high. You don't want to be too low.
Right. It's all about finding that sweet spot. And the book emphasizes that it's not just about picking a number out of thin air. There's actually a science to it.
Okay.
It starts with really understanding both your internal costs and the external market.
Okay, so like what are your ingredients costing you, but also what are your competitors charging?
Exactly. You have to consider your target audience, your profit margins, the competitive landscape, even broader economic trends.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is, but the book breaks it down in a way that's easy to understand. And it explores different pricing models like cost-plus pricing, value-based pricing, competitive pricing.
So many options.
Okay. Yeah, and it gives you practical tips for handling tricky situations like price increases or discounts.
Like, how do you tell your loyal customers that you know things are going up?
Exactly. It's all in there.
It's like a pricing masterclass condensed into a single chapter.
That's a good way to put it. And, we've talked about marketing, customer service pricing, but none of it really matters if you don't have the right people on your team.
That's so true. Building a strong team is essential. And honestly, managing people, that can be one of the most challenging parts of running a business.
For sure. And you can't just throw money at the problem. You have to understand what motivates people, what makes them tick. And the book takes a really interesting approach to this. It actually taps into classic psychology.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Refresh my memory.
Right? So Maslow's theory is all about these different levels of human needs.
Yeah.
From basic survival like food and water, all the way up to self-actualization.
Yeah, okay.
And the book argues that understanding these needs is key to motivating employees.
So it's not just about, offering a good salary. It's about creating a work environment where people feel valued and fulfilled.
Exactly. It's about aligning jobs with people's skills and interests, setting clear expectations, and fostering open communication.
So it's about creating an environment where people feel challenged, but also supported.
Precisely. And the book also emphasizes that, recognizing and rewarding good performance is essential.
Yeah. People need to feel appreciated.
Exactly. A little positive reinforcement can go a long way.
And when employees feel appreciated, they're more likely to go the extra mile for the company and for the customers.
Absolutely. And that actually ties into another really important topic the book addresses: social responsibility.
Yeah, it feels like that's becoming increasingly important to consumers these days.
It really is.
It has.
And the book argues that it shouldn't just be about, good PR. It needs to be woven into the very fabric of your business.
So it's not just about doing good, it's about doing good business.
Exactly. Because a lot of times those things go hand in hand. Like, think about it. Reducing waste often cuts costs. Supporting local suppliers strengthens your community ties. Treating employees fairly improves morale and reduces turnover.
So it's a win-win-win.
Exactly. It's about taking a more holistic approach to business success, one that considers the well-being of your employees, your community, and even the planet.
I love that. So are there any companies that the book highlights as doing this really well? Like, who should we be inspired by?
One that really stood out to me was Pick n Pay. They're a South African supermarket chain,
Okay.
and they have this long history of supporting social causes and really empowering their employees to get involved in their communities.
I love that.
And it's not just about writing checks. They're really embedded in the communities they serve.
That's awesome.
And this approach has not only, generated positive publicity and goodwill, but it's also strengthened employee loyalty.
Yeah, because people want to work for a company that shares their values.
Exactly.
It's a great example of how businesses can be a force for good in the world while also, achieving their business goals.
Absolutely. And the book has a ton of other examples of companies that are doing amazing things.
What other insights did the book offer on the topic of social responsibility? Because it feels like it can be kind of overwhelming, where to even begin.
Right. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach, but the book encourages businesses to really think about their impact on the environment, their supply chains, and their relationships with both employees and customers.
Okay, so it's about looking at the big picture and considering the ripple effect of your business decisions.
Exactly. And it also challenges this traditional survival of the fittest mentality in business.
Oh, how so?
It makes a really compelling case for collaboration.
Collaboration. That seems kind of counterintuitive in the business world.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the book argues that businesses can actually achieve greater success by working together, sharing resources, and learning from each other.
Interesting. So instead of viewing other businesses as competition, it's about seeing them as potential partners.
Exactly. They call it cooperative business networks.
Okay. I like that. So it's about moving away from a win-lose mindset toward a more collaborative approach.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that sometimes the best way to overcome a challenge is to join forces with others.
It's like the old saying, two heads are better than one.
Exactly. And The book shares a bunch of examples of businesses that have formed these really successful alliances, even with their competitors, to achieve shared goals.
Wow, I wouldn't have thought of that. I'm really intrigued by this idea of collaboration. It seems like a really powerful way to leverage collective knowledge and resources. What are some of the specific benefits that businesses have seen from forming these cooperative networks?
Well, for one, it can significantly reduce costs. By pooling resources, businesses can get access to better deals on everything from raw materials to marketing services.
That makes sense.
And it can also lead to some really incredible innovation.
Oh, why is that?
Well, because you're bringing together people with different perspectives and expertise.
Oh, right. So you get that cross-pollination of ideas.
Exactly. And that can lead to breakthroughs that wouldn't have been possible otherwise.
That's cool.
And these networks can also help businesses tap into new markets and expand their reach.
So it's like having a built-in support system and a sounding board for new ideas.
Exactly. And it can be especially valuable for small businesses that might not have the resources or networks of larger companies.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, the book also touches on a topic that's becoming increasingly important for businesses in today's world: sustainability. It feels like you can't talk about the future of business without talking about sustainability.
Absolutely. It's not just a buzzword anymore. It's something that customers are actively looking for. And frankly, it's just the right thing to do. And the book goes beyond just the environmental aspects of sustainability, although those are obviously critical.
Yeah.
And it frames sustainability as being essential for long-term business viability.
Okay, so it's not just about being green. It's about ensuring that your business can actually thrive in a world with finite resources.
Exactly. Think about all the risks that are associated with unsustainable practices: resource depletion, pollution, climate change, even social unrest.
Those are some pretty big challenges, to say the least.
They are. But the book makes a really compelling case that sustainability can actually be a source of competitive advantage.
Okay, so because it seems like sustainable practices often come with a higher price tag.
There could be some upfront costs for sure, but the long-term benefits often outweigh them. Like, just think about it. There's a growing consumer demand for eco-friendly products and services. People are willing to pay more for things that are good for the planet.
That's true.
And not only that, but becoming more resource efficient can actually lead to cost savings.
Oh, interesting. So it's about finding that sweet spot where doing the right thing for the planet also makes good business sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the book is packed with all these inspiring examples of companies that are successfully integrating sustainable practices into their operations, and they're actually reaping the benefits.
Give me an example. Who should we be looking up to?
One that's really impressive is Interface. They're a carpet tile manufacturer,
Okay.
and they have fully embraced sustainability like it's in their DNA.
Oh, what have they done?
They've drastically reduced their environmental footprint. They've innovated new products from recycled materials, and they've actually achieved a net zero environmental impact.
Wow, that's amazing. It shows that these goals are actually achievable with the right vision and commitment. So what were some of the key takeaways from their journey?
Well, they focused on making incremental changes, setting realistic goals, and constantly innovating.
Okay.
And they also did a really great job of engaging their employees in the process.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it created a shared sense of purpose and pride.
That makes sense. It's about making sustainability part of the company culture, not just an afterthought.
Exactly. And Interface is not alone. The book features a ton of other companies that are leading the way in sustainability.
Like who else?
Well, there's Patagonia, of course, known for their commitment to ethical sourcing and fair labor practices.
Yeah, they walk the walk.
They do. And then there's Tesla, obviously revolutionizing the electric car market.
Okay, so these are some pretty big names. It sounds like sustainability is no longer a niche market. It's becoming mainstream.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the book really emphasizes that sustainability is not about these grand gestures. It's about taking those small practical steps every single day to reduce your environmental impact.
It's about making conscious choices, big and small, that add up to a more sustainable future.
Exactly. And it's a journey that every business, regardless of its size or its industry, can embark on.
I love that message.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive into the entrepreneur's guide to building a successful business,
it really highlights the point that, success in business, it's not really about luck.
it's about hard work and preparation.
Yeah. And this laser focus on the customer, really understanding what they want and need.
Absolutely. And being willing to adapt because the business world is constantly changing.
It moves so fast.
Yeah.
And the book talks about the importance of resilience, especially in today's world.
Because it's not enough to just have a great idea. You have to be constantly learning, evolving, adjusting your approach to stay ahead of the curve. Did the book have any, practical advice for how to actually do that?
Yeah, one thing it stresses is the importance of staying informed about your industry. What are the new technologies? What are the emerging trends? What's happening with consumer behavior?
So it's like being a business detective, always on the lookout for clues.
Exactly. The book calls it environmental scanning.
I like that, environmental scanning.
Yeah, you're constantly scanning the horizon for potential opportunities and threats.
Okay, so you're staying informed, but also listening to your customers because they can be like a gold mine of insights, right?
Oh, absolutely. The book talks about creating this feedback loop with your customers so you can really understand their evolving needs.
Because your customers can be your greatest source of innovation.
Exactly. Their feedback can spark ideas for new products, new services, even entirely new business models.
It's like tapping into a wellspring of creativity.
That's a great way to put it. Now, with all this talk about innovation and adaptation, it's easy to get caught up in the hustle and grind of it all.
Yeah, burnout is a real thing.
It is. And the book actually dedicates a whole section to the importance of work-life balance.
Okay, good, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your business.
So what were some of the tips that resonated with you?
Well, it starts with recognizing that being an entrepreneur can be all-consuming, but it's not sustainable in the long run.
Right.
You have to set boundaries and prioritize self-care.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It is. But the book actually offers some pretty practical tips for managing stress, prioritizing tasks, delegating effectively, and taking breaks.
Okay, I like that actionable advice.
Yeah, it even suggests scheduling time for things that you enjoy outside of work.
You mean actually putting it in your calendar?
Yes, because if it's not scheduled, it's probably not going to happen.
So true.
Yeah.
One of the things I really appreciated about this book was its focus on practical advice.
Yes, it's not just a bunch of high-level concepts. It's here's exactly what to do and how to do it.
Were there any tools or resources in the book that you found particularly helpful?
The marketing checklist was a standout for me. It provides this really clear framework for evaluating your current marketing efforts and identifying areas for improvement.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, it's like a little audit you can do to see what's working and what's not.
Love it. What else?
The book also has this fantastic section on financial management. It breaks down key concepts like cash flow and balance sheets in a way that's easy to understand even if you're not, a financial expert.
Because not all entrepreneurs are numbers people.
Exactly. And there's even a section on basic bookkeeping, which can feel really intimidating for new business owners.
Yeah, it's like the thing nobody tells you have to do.
Right. But the book walks you through it step by step.
It sounds like this book is a mini MBA packed into a single read.
I know it's a really valuable resource. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the final message for our listeners who are, ready to take the plunge into the world of entrepreneurship? Building a successful business is a journey, and it's rarely a straight line.
There are going to be bumps in the road for sure.
There will be. But with the right mindset, hard work, and a willingness to learn and adapt, anything is possible.
I love that message. And, this book, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Building a Successful Business, is a fantastic resource for anyone embarking on that journey.
It really is. It's packed with insights, practical guidance, and real-world examples to help you navigate the exciting and sometimes overwhelming world of entrepreneurship.
It's like having a mentor in your back pocket.
Exactly. And we're so glad you joined us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time. What's that one big takeaway you hope our listeners are left pondering after they finish this deep dive?
I think the book really drives home this point, that success in business is rarely about luck.
Yeah.
It's about hard work.
Yeah, it's about preparation and really understanding what your customers want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And being willing to adapt. Because the business world is not static. It's constantly changing.
So true. It's not enough to just have a great idea. You got to constantly be learning and evolving and, adjusting your approach to stay ahead of the game. Did the book have any advice for how to actually do that?
It really emphasizes this idea of staying informed about your industry. What are the new technologies? What are the emerging trends? How is consumer behavior changing?
So you're like a business detective, always on the lookout for those clues.
Yes, exactly. The book calls it environmental scanning.
Environmental scanning. I love that.
It's like you're constantly scanning the horizon, looking for potential opportunities, but also, watching out for those threats.
Right. You got to be prepared for anything. Okay,
Yeah.
So you're staying informed, but you're also listening to your customers.
Yeah.
Because they can be like a gold mine of insights.
Oh, absolutely. The book talks about creating a feedback loop with your customers so that you can really understand, their needs and how those needs are evolving.
Because at the end of the day, your customers can be your greatest source of innovation.
Precisely. Their feedback can spark ideas for new products, new services, even like entirely new business models.
It's like tapping into this like wellspring of creativity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, with all this talk about innovation and adaptation and, staying ahead of the curve, it's easy to get caught up in that hustle and grind.
Yeah, burnout is real.
It is. And the book actually dedicates a whole section to the importance of work-life balance.
Okay, good. Because you can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
Exactly. You have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your business.
So what were some of the tips in that section that really resonated with you?
Well, I think it starts with recognizing that being an entrepreneur, it can be all-consuming. But it's not sustainable in the long run.
Yeah.
You have to set boundaries. You have to prioritize self-care.
It's easier said than done, though, right?
It is. But the book actually offers some really practical tips for managing stress, prioritizing tasks, delegating effectively, and taking breaks.
Okay, give me some of those tips, because I think we could all use a little bit of that.
Well, one thing it suggests is actually scheduling time for things that you enjoy outside of work.
You mean like actually putting it on your calendar?
Yes. Because if it's not scheduled, it's probably not going to happen.
That is so true. One of the things I really appreciated about this book, as we're kind of getting towards the end here, was its focus on practical advice.
Yes. It's not just these high-level, fluffy concepts. It's like, here's exactly what to do, and here's how to do it.
Exactly.
But
Were there any specific tools or resources in the book that you found particularly helpful?
the marketing checklist was a standout for me.
Mhm.
It's basically this framework for evaluating your current marketing efforts and identifying areas for improvement.
Oh, that's really handy.
Yeah, it's like a little audit you can do to see, what's working, what's not.
I love it. What else?
The book also has a fantastic section on financial management. And it breaks down all those key concepts like cash flow and balance sheets in a way that's really easy to understand,
Yeah.
even if you're not a financial expert.
Because not every entrepreneur is a numbers person.
Exactly. And there's even a section on basic bookkeeping, which that can be one of the most intimidating parts of starting a business.
It's like the thing that nobody tells you you have to do.
Exactly. But the book walks you through it step by step.
That's awesome. It sounds like this book is like a mini MBA packed into a single read.
It really is like a crash course in entrepreneurship.
I love it. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the entrepreneur's guide to building a successful business, what's the final message you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that building a successful business is a journey, and it's rarely a straight line. There are going to be challenges, there are going to be setbacks, there are going to be moments of doubt.
For sure.
But with the right mindset, hard work, and a willingness to learn and adapt, anything is possible.
I love that message. And this book really does provide you with the tools and the inspiration to navigate that journey.
It does. It's like having a mentor in your back pocket.
So true. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the entrepreneur's guide to building a successful business. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Likewise, it's been fun.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.